Begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land and pay our respects to their elders past and present. We extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people here today. Breast cancer is the second most commonly diagnosed cancer, with 1 in 11 Indigenous women diagnosed. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders represent 45% of all people living in very remote rural areas. An average of 197 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women are diagnosed with breast cancer each year. From this statistic, there is 77% chance of a 5-year survival rate. Indigenous lifestyle risks such as alcohol consumption, smoking, and obesity increases susceptibility. Late diagnosis and lack of quality care stems from the lack of education on symptoms, long travel expenses, and home responsibilities. The gap between Indigenous Australians compared to the general population is obvious. Simply put, there is a 20% less incident rate of breast cancer in Indigenous Australians compared to the non-Indigenous, although their mortality rate is higher, reinforcing that screening and preventative measures are not available to those at risk. In 2017, only 2.2% of published health research in Australia had focused on multicultural health despite the increase of CALD populations. Breastscreen New South Wales invited women to participate in information sessions, including PowerPoint slides, videos, and visual displays about breast and cervical screening. These sessions were attended by at least one Aboriginal health worker. Afterwards, free screens to those eligible and one-on-one post-screen interviews. Women appeared disinterested, therefore the intervention was discontinued. Breastscreen Australia promotes screening, shares awareness online, posters and ads. Its website only provided in English. In Western Australia, they have been proactive in increasing Indigenous participation. It includes 9 screening services located in Perth, 1 regionally based service, and 4 vans which visit almost 100 rural towns once every 2 years, although only 30% of Aboriginal women 40 years and over get to participate. From past interventions, cultural competency represented its flaws. These include lack of health literacy, embarrassment and shame, difficulty navigating the health system, lack of awareness and information, communication problems, and alternatively, it was noted that women's fear of screening procedures was outweighed by its benefits, and women believed that yarning circles made it more comfortable. Finally, in terms of men's views, there were no outstanding cultural expectations, and they are supportive towards the campaign. The future focus includes screening clinics which operate after hours to satisfy working women, while also the Australian Institute of Health claimed that emphasis needs to be given to the recruitment of groups likely to be underscreened, particularly older women, women of low socioeconomic status, rural women, Aboriginal women, and women of non-English speaking background.
Our community group Test the Breast creates a safe environment for rural, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women to prevent and treat breast cancer. Through thoughtful and considerate planning, we aim to conduct a culturally appropriate and enjoyable event that provides breast cancer support and screening to rural Indigenous communities that are currently underrepresented in the provision of these resources. Our core purpose is to raise awareness of breast cancer within this community group by providing accessible and acceptable prevention and treatment services. We advocate for minimising the disproportionate burden of breast cancer on rural, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. Through strong partnership with Indigenous community members and organisations such as the National Aboriginal Community Controlled Health Organisation, we will ensure that our event Test the Breast meets this goal in an equitable, efficient and appropriate way. Test the Breast is a pop-up fair event that involves mobile screening vans, information about appropriate local support referrals, and support groups. Prevention through early intervention is a priority for our event as it can drastically minimise the impacts of breast cancer for the population. The event's ability to be mobile will enable it to reach various rural Indigenous communities to maximise its inclusivity. The event aims to foster an open dialogue around breast cancer in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples by facilitating intimate support groups. This will provide Indigenous women with the opportunity to listen to breast cancer survivors and share their own personal stories through traditional yarning circles, empowering this community through voice. QR codes will also be on flyers at the event, on screening vans and in the local area, connecting both men and women with a guide to do self-breast checks in the comfort of their home. Within rural Indigenous communities, simple awareness leaflets have been proven effective in advertising for health events. These will be distributed with the QR code. We will also work with community elders, leaders, and local stakeholder ambassadors to spread information about the event so it can be translated appropriately. Local people will help to facilitate the services, and health professionals will be trained to communicate in the relevant native language or dialect. To increase awareness and support from all Australians for this issue, Test the Breast enables businesses to have a promotion in stores. Customers can buy a $10 bra and 100% of these proceeds go towards supporting our event. Collaboration to create these bras with licensed Indigenous art designs and fabrics will also increase awareness, comfortability, and inclusivity. We have developed some advocacy objectives to ensure our event is efficient. To increase breast cancer screening rates in rural Indigenous communities by 60% in the first 6 months of facilitating Test the Breast events. 2. To achieve 70% local community participation for all events in the first year by working collaboratively with Indigenous organisations and local stakeholders to advertise, support, and inform Test the Breast. And 3. To utilise cultural competency training to ensure that 80% of workers at each event are culturally competent in the dialect of the local community by the time the event schedule is released.
Test the Breast aims to ensure the community is provided with a safe space for cross-cultural interactions. This helps them feel comfortable to join our event, but also feel free to express their opinion and inquiries in regards to breast cancer. A factor that we considered was the yarning circles. Research was conducted using yarning, a traditionally appropriate means to exchanging information, experience, and tradition. Attendees were able to share information in a culturally sensitive way and engage with society. By expressing individual experiences, we also offered insight that demonstrated experiential knowledge, respect, and fairness. Diagnosis, obtaining therapy, and treatment experiences were among the topics for discussion rather than a set individual schedule. It also increases the awareness of other people of different cultural backgrounds to be educated on breast cancer in Indigenous women within the setting of the yarning circles. With the concept of the yarning circle, we also incorporated Indigenous workers. Also proven effective by Tapia in 2019, the health communication in Indigenous languages is crucial in boosting participation and retention of Indigenous women in breast screen. Their event shows an increase of 63% engagement when having Indigenous workers be in the Indigenous community. Indigenous visual arts serves as a tool for cultural expression as well as the preservative and transfer of culture. Health and well-being are promoted through the visual arts. They improve the lives of Indigenous women and provide young Indigenous people self-esteem. As has been said, breast screening is the deadliest disease for Indigenous women. Our mobile screening aims to increase early detections and educate those on how to navigate for early symptoms. Breast cancer is high within Indigenous women because of a number of aspects, such as socio-economic disadvantage, reduced screening and treatment engagement, geographic remoteness, and an advanced stage of cancer at the time of diagnosis. Therefore, increasing the mobile screening services for these groups will also increase the likelihood of detecting early breast cancer symptoms. With the exception of speech, which was important only for Indigenous women, and location, which was important only for non-Indigenous women, factors associated with fewer screening visits were identical for both groups of women. A study conducted by Pilkington in 2017 demonstrated the willingness of Indigenous women in their views on breast screening. Considering a generic susceptibility to breast cancer and a belief in investing in health for the sake of future generation, as well as individual well-being, was cited as primary motivations. Lack of screening knowledge or comprehension, cultural limitation in screening programs, cultural perception about illness in general and breast cancer in specific, and conflicting health and life goals were all identified as barriers. Thank you for watching. We hope you appreciate Test the Breast.